Okay, so you ready to jump into this Project Stargate thing?
Yeah, let's do it.
I mean, honestly, when I first saw the title in the email, I was like, is this like a joke or something?
Yeah, I had the same thought. Stargate, like right out of a movie.
Exactly. But no, this is like a real thing, like real companies, real money, and a lot of it.
Yeah, a lot of money. We're talking like $500 billion potentially.
That's insane. $500 billion, right?
Not a typo. You heard that, right?
And it's all going into AI infrastructure here in the U.S., which is already kind of mind-blowing.
Like the scale of this is unlike anything we've seen before in tech.
So in the stack of stuff you send over, we've got like articles, press releases.
Mm-hmm.
There's even a Wikipedia entry already.
I know, right? It's moving so fast. That's how big this is.
And you've got sources from like OpenAI themselves, SoftBank, which I know is like a major player in this whole thing.
And an AI blog that's trying to like break it all down for the average person.
Yeah, so where do we even start with something this massive?
Well, I guess the first thing to figure out is what exactly IS Project Stargate.
Right, because the name itself doesn't really tell us much.
Exactly. So it's actually a new company, a joint venture between some pretty big names in tech.
Like, who are we talking about here?
Well, you've got OpenAI. Obviously, they're like the AI gurus.
Right, the ChatGPT people.
Exactly. And then there's SoftBank. They're the ones with the deep pockets, you know?
Ah, so they're the money behind it.
Pretty much, yeah. And then you've got Oracle. They're known for their cloud infrastructure and databases, which are obviously crucial for AI.
Makes sense. And who else?
Well, MGX is in the mix too, and then you've got other tech giants like Microsoft, NVIDIA, ARM. They're all providing hardware and software components.
So it's like a whole team of tech Avengers assembling for this thing.
It really is, and their goal is to build a network of these super advanced AI data centers across the U.S.
Like server farms, but on steroids.
Exactly, and they're starting in Texas.
So we're talking about massive computing power, all dedicated to training the next generation of AI models.
That's the idea, and the sheer scale of it is already drawing comparisons to the Manhattan Project.
Whoa, the Manhattan Project? No, that's a serious comparison.
It is. It shows just how ambitious this whole thing is.
So it sounds like we're not just talking about some incremental improvement in AI here.
No, this is like a quantum leap forward, if they can pull it off.
Okay, so now I'm really curious, like, who's calling the shots in this Project Stargate? What are the roles of these different companies?
Well, OpenAI is definitely leading the charge on the AI development side. They're like the architects of the AI systems that will run on this new infrastructure.
So they're the brains of the operation.
Yeah, you could say that. And then you've got SoftBank, led by Masayoshi Son. He's always been a big believer in AI, so he's basically putting his money where his mouth is.
So he's the one with the vision, the driving force.
Yeah, and he's not afraid to take risks, which is kind of what you need for something this ambitious.
And what about Oracle? What are they bringing to the table?
Well, they're the data management experts, right?
Yeah.
They'll be handling all the massive amounts of data that go into training these AI models.
Makes sense. AI is all about data, after all.
Exactly. And Oracle's got the experience and the infrastructure to handle it.
So it sounds like they've assembled like the ultimate tech dream team for this Project Stargate.
It really does seem that way.
So, okay, big question. WHY, is this such a big deal? I mean, obviously AI is a hot topic, but this seems like it's taking things to a whole new level.
It is, and it's not just about the technology itself, it's about the implications for the U.S. on a global scale.
Okay, so unpack that a bit. What do you mean by global implications?
Well, Project Stargate is being framed as a way for the U.S. to maintain its leadership in AI, which is becoming increasingly important on the world stage.
Right, because other countries are investing heavily in AI too.
Exactly. It's like a 21st century space race, but instead of rockets and satellites, we're talking about algorithms and processing power.
This is about national security then, making sure the U.S. stays ahead of the curve.
That's a big part of it, yeah, but there's also the economic angle to consider.
Right, because a project of this scale is bound to have a ripple effect on the economy.
Absolutely. They're projecting that Project Stargate could create hundreds of thousands of new jobs across a wide range of sectors.
Wow, that's a lot of jobs.
Yeah,
We're talking construction, manufacturing, high-tech research, you name it.
exactly. It could be a huge boost to the American economy.
So it's being presented as this win-win situation, right? Advancement in AI and a boost to the economy.
Yeah, that's the narrative, but of course there are also potential downsides.
Right, because nothing this big comes without risks.
Exactly.
So what are some of the concerns people are raising about Project Stargate?
Well, one of the big ones is energy consumption. These data centers are going to require a massive amount of power.
Right, I hadn't even thought about that. But it makes sense, all those servers running 24/7.
Exactly. And that raises concerns about the environmental impact, you know, the carbon emissions strain on power grids, things like that.
So it's not just about building the infrastructure, it's about making sure it's sustainable in the long run.
That's a key point. And then there's the whole issue of oversight and regulation.
Ah, yes. The question of who controls this powerful technology and how it's used.
Exactly. And there's already some pushback on that front, even before Project Stargate was officially announced.
So there's concern that it's all moving too fast without enough thought given to the potential consequences.
That's one way to put it. Some people are worried about the lack of clear guidelines and regulations.
And it's not just about hypothetical doomsday scenarios like robots taking over, right?
Right. It's about making sure that AI is developed and used in a way that benefits humanity, not just a select few.
That's a crucial point.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we've already seen examples of how algorithms can perpetuate bias and inequality.
Exactly. And with something as powerful as Project Stargate, those risks are magnified.
So it sounds like there are a lot of unanswered questions about how this project will be managed and regulated.
There are, and those are questions that need to be addressed sooner rather than later.
Okay, so we've talked about the who and the why of Project Stargate, but now I'm curious about the how.
The how.
Yeah, how is this project going to navigate the complex world of government policy and regulations? Because surely a project of this magnitude is going to attract a lot of attention from lawmakers.
Oh, absolutely. And that's where things get even more interesting.
Well, listeners, it seems like we're just scratching the surface of this AI behemoth. So buckle up, because in the next part of our deep dive, we'll be unpacking the policy and regulatory landscape surrounding Project Stargate. And trust me, you won't want to miss it.
It's going to be a wild ride.
Definitely stay tuned.
It's becoming pretty clear as we dig deeper into Project Stargate. This isn't just about, code and server farms.
Yeah, it feels much bigger than that.
It's like technology and politics and economics all colliding.
Like we're watching some high-stakes chess game play out.
Exactly. And Project Stargate is America's big move.
Trying to stay ahead in this AI race.
Right. And national security is a big factor in all this.
Which reminds me, previous administrations were really pushing for AI development too.
Oh, yeah. There were all those executive orders trying to speed things up.
But weren't there also concerns about safety, like checks and balances on all this?
You're thinking of that Biden-era executive order?
Yeah, that one.
The one that required all these safety tests for big AI models before they could be released.
Trying to make sure things didn't get out of control.
Right, like making sure these AI systems were aligned with human values,
Transparency, accountability, that kind of thing.
Exactly, trying to get ahead of the problems before they spiraled out of control.
Seemed like a pretty sensible approach.
It did, but then the next administration came in and scrapped the whole thing.
Really? They just got rid of it?
Yep, the argument was that it was slowing down innovation, creating too much red tape.
Hurting American companies in the global AI race.
Right, the focus shifted to deregulation and this move fast and break things mentality.
Which, works okay in software, but what happens when you're breaking things with AI?
That's the scary part. The consequences could be much bigger than a buggy app.
Like those sci-fi movies where AI goes rogue. I know it's fiction, but still makes you think.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, we've already seen examples of AI causing problems in the real world.
Like what kinds of things?
Well, there have been cases where algorithms, the ones trained on biased data, ended up perpetuating inequalities.
Oh, right. Like in healthcare or loan applications.
Exactly. And even in the criminal justice system.
So the AI was basically amplifying existing biases.
Right. And that's why it's so important to address bias from the very beginning, especially with a project as big as Stargate.
Because if the data is flawed, the AI is going to be flawed too.
Exactly. And with Stargate, we're talking about AI on a massive scale, so the potential for harm is huge.
Which brings us back to regulation, right? Making sure there were some guardrails in place.
Absolutely. It's not about stopping progress. It's about steering it in the right direction.
Making sure AI benefits humanity as a whole.
Right. And different countries are taking different approaches to AI regulation.
Really? Like what are some examples?
Well, the European Union is being much more cautious. They're prioritizing ethics and human rights.
So they're putting people first.
Yeah. They're proposing things like algorithmic audits to check for bias and giving citizens more control over their data.
Sounds like a more balanced approach.
It is. It's a different philosophy for sure.
So where does the U.S. stand on all this with Project Stargate? Is there any regulation in place?
It's a bit of a gray area right now.
How so?
Well, the deregulation push from the previous administration might have cleared some hurdles.
Right.
But there are still general laws about data privacy, consumer protection, things like that could apply.
So it's not a complete free-for-all.
No, but the question is whether these existing laws are enough to deal with AI or if we need new AI-specific
Yeah,
regulations.
because AI is evolving so fast,
Exactly. It's like we're building the plane as we're flying it.
which is never a comfortable feeling.
No, it definitely underscores the need for careful consideration and discussion about how to handle all this.
Okay, so we've talked about the benefits,
Hmm.
the risks, the global competition, the ethical concerns, but there's another big piece of the puzzle,
You mean?
the money, the financial side of all this.
Yes, we can't forget about that.
We've thrown around these crazy numbers. $100 billion in initial funding, potentially $500 billion eventually?
Numbers that are hard to even grasp.
Exactly. So where's all that money coming from, and what are the economic consequences of such a massive investment?
Those are the million-dollar questions, and that's what we'll be diving into in the final part of our deep dive.
Get ready, listeners, because where the money flows, the power often follows. Okay, so we've talked about like the whole grand vision of Project Stargate, right? The players, the risks, the global implications. But let's be real here. The thing that just boggles my mind is the sheer amount of money we're talking about.
Yeah, it's astronomical.
$500 billion. I mean, come on.
It's almost impossible to comprehend that much money, you know?
Seriously, it's like more than the entire GDP of many countries.
It's a level of investment that's basically unheard of even in the world of big tech.
So it begs the question, where is all this money coming from?
That's the big mystery, isn't it?
We know SoftBank is involved, and they're known for making these huge bets.
Right, but the details are still pretty murky.
Yeah, like, is SoftBank really bankrolling the whole thing, as some people are saying?
It wouldn't be surprising given their track record, but we don't know for sure.
The articles you sent mention OpenAI, Oracle, MGX as investors, too.
But the exact breakdown hasn't been made public,
So it's kind of like a black box right now.
which is fueling all the speculation and skepticism.
Especially with Elon Musk chiming in, saying they might not actually have the money.
Yeah, he's not one to shy away from controversy.
It does make you wonder if this whole thing is built on a shaky foundation.
What if they can't actually raise the full $500 billion?
Exactly what happens to Project Stargate, then.
It's a huge gamble, even for companies with deep pockets.
But let's say, for argument's sake, they do manage to raise all the money.
Okay, let's go down that road.
What would be the impact of injecting that much capital into the AI sector?
It could be huge, both for the U.S. economy and globally.
Like a tidal wave of change?
Potentially,
Yeah.
yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, think about the job creation.
Right, we talked about that before. Hundreds of thousands of new jobs.
Not just in building the data centers, but in all the industries that will be impacted by AI.
It could be a massive economic boom.
And a shift in global power dynamics.
Because if the U.S. becomes the dominant force in AI,
Other countries will have to play catch-up.
but it's not just about the positive impacts, right? There are potential downsides, too.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, what if the wealth generated by AI ends up concentrated in the hands of a few?
The rich get richer scenario.
Exactly, and that could exacerbate inequality and lead to social unrest.
It's a valid concern and one that needs to be addressed.
We need to make sure the benefits of AI are shared more broadly.
And that AI is used for good, not just for profit.
So it's a balancing act, right?
Definitely navigating the potential benefits and risks of this powerful technology.
It feels like we're at a crossroads right now.
The decisions we make today about AI will shape the future.
And it's not just up to governments and tech companies.
We all have a role to play in this conversation.
So to our listeners out there,
Keep learning, keep questioning.
stay informed and engaged, because the future of AI is being written right now.
And it's a future that will impact us all.
That's it for our deep dive into Project Stargate. Thanks for joining us.
It's been a fascinating discussion.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep thinking critically, and most importantly, keep asking those tough questions.